Coming up today, with Korea marking the first anniversary of the Sewol-ho ferry sinking, President Park Geun-hye pledges to salvage the sunken vessel and retrieve the bodies of 9 people who remain missing. A top US commander says Washington is in discussions about the potential deployment of the US THAAD missile defense system to the Korean peninsula to counter North Korea's nuclear and missile threats. Plus, senior officials from Korea, the United States and Japan are holding rare three-way talks in Washington as the US tries to bridge the divide between Seoul and Tokyo on Japan's historical wrongdoings. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Friday, April 17th here in Seoul. Thanks, as always, for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. Our top story this morning, Korea marked the solemn one-year anniversary of the Sewol-ho ferry sinking on Thursday. The disaster, which killed 304 people, plunged the country into a deep state of shock and sorrow. Our Gwon-soa filed this report from Korea's southwestern Jindo island, where President Park Geun-hye vowed to recover the sunken vessel.
Pengmokgang Harbor off the south coast of Jindo Island. Last year, the victims' families gathered here, calling out to loved ones trapped on the sunken ship. Now, this port has become a place for them to remember the 304 people who died on board the ill-fated ship. This port, the nearest point of dry land to the sunken ferry, is a sea of yellow, the symbolic color of the tragedy. Though a year has passed, Pengmokgang Harbor will remain a site of grief, especially for the families of the 9 people still missing. And that's why there have been unrelenting calls to raise the ship's wreckage. On Thursday, President Park Geun-hye went to the harbor and addressed the appeals for recovery.
얼마 전 세월호 선체 인양이 기술적으로 가능하다는 발표가 있었습니다. 저는 이제 선체 인양을 진지하게 준비해야 한다고 생각합니다.
She vowed to raise the ferry in the near future and do everything possible to recover the 9 missing passengers. Other politicians and officials were present at a memorial service for the victims, including Minister of Oceans and Fisheries Yoo Gi-jun, who expressed his sorrow about the tragedy.
The government will do its utmost to prevent such a big tragedy from happening again.
He added that the government would listen to the bereaved families and the public in regards to the unresolved issues surrounding the accident. Jindo residents and people from across the country attended the memorial service, paying their respects to the victims at an altar and taking part in prayer services throughout the day.
It was such a painful tragedy and I felt like I have been forgetting it. That's why I came to reminisce with my child.
I came last year and this year too. I was a government supervisor when the ferry company was being established, and I was responsible for overseeing the process. It's such a pity. If the captain had called for an evacuation, nearly everyone could have escaped. That's what I believe.
While politicians and the public gathered for the event, some of the families of the deceased and still missing skipped their scheduled appearance. During the memorial service, the names of the victims were shown on a screen as yellow balloons were sent into the sky in a symbolic gesture of remembrance. Gwon-soa, Arirang News, Pengmokgang Harbor.
And the ferry sinking was also the focus of the last day of a special session at the National Assembly on Thursday. Lawmakers passed a resolution calling for the ferry to be salvaged, but a snowballing bribery scandal was also in the spotlight. Park Geun-hye reports.
Thursday's government questioning session began with a moment of silence for the victims of last year's Sewol-ho ferry disaster. On the first anniversary of the tragic accident, lawmakers grilled government officials over progress made on plans to strengthen safety measures.
According to a recent media poll, 70% of respondents said the government's safety response and management abilities have improved since the ferry disaster. What do you think about this?
The Safety Ministry is preparing diverse measures, including a nationwide safety inspection. I'm sorry to say that it takes more time and budget for a safety culture to be completely immersed in everyday lives.
Parliament also spent considerable time on the recent bribery scandal involving high-profile politicians, including Prime Minister Lee Wan-gu. Main opposition party lawmakers urged the Prime Minister to voluntarily resign.
It seems like people have already lost confidence in your qualifications as Prime Minister. Are you willing to step down from the post?
I think it is very inappropriate that a country's prime minister should be pressured to step down on the basis of one person's memo or testimony, even before the truth of the case is revealed.
Meanwhile, the National Assembly adopted a resolution on Thursday morning calling for the prompt recovery of the sunken ferry. Parliament called for the development of a plan to raise the ship as quickly as possible in an effort to prevent further destruction of evidence and show the government's willingness to carry out a thorough investigation. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye says she will pursue every possible means to resolve the high-profile bribery scandal, including setting up an independent council probe. She made the remarks during a meeting with ruling Saenuri Party chairman Kim Moo-sang before leaving on a four-nation trip to South America on Thursday afternoon. President Park added that she would use the opportunity to root out corruption and push for political reform. She also said she would respond to calls for Prime Minister Lee Wan-gu's resignation after returning from South America. And on her trip to South America, President Park will seek to secure more opportunities for Korea in the region. Our Chae-sun has the details.
With a combined GDP of $6 trillion and a population of 600 million, South America, like the Middle East, is considered a region that can offer Korea a new growth engine overseas. Meeting with the leaders of Korea's four major Pacific Rim partners in South America, President Park Geun-hye will look to strengthen the partnerships beyond the economy to healthcare, education, defense, and ICT. In Colombia, President Park will discuss ways to deepen the two sides' strategic cooperative partnership, as well as help spur the implementation of the bilateral free trade deal, now awaiting the Colombian Constitutional Court's approval. On a state visit to Peru, President Park will attend a defense industry-related event. This as Korea seeks to export its light combat aircraft, the FA-50, to Peru, which is in the process of modernizing its defense capabilities. The third leg of President Park's tour will be Chile, Korea's first free trading partner. Based on the bilateral trade pact and comprehensive cooperative partnership, the two countries are expected to talk about further enhancing cooperation towards co-prosperity across the Pacific. On their final stop in Brazil, President Park plans to secure more business opportunities for Korean firms in the world's seventh largest economy. Korean business leaders will also have the chance to network with their South American counterparts, and there will be cultural events to promote Korean pop culture. Aside from her economic diplomacy drive, President Park plans to meet Korean residents who first settled on the continent during the 1960s and 70s as flower farmers, fishermen, and taekwondo instructors. Touting their achievements, she will ask that they bridge ties between Korea and the region. Chae-sun, Arirang News.
A top U.S. military official has dropped one of the strongest hints yet that Seoul and Washington are discussing the potential deployment of a highly controversial U.S. missile defense system to the Korean peninsula. Speaking at a U.S. Senate Armed Services Committee hearing on Thursday, U.S. Pacific Commander Samuel Locklear said the decision process is underway. but he didn't elaborate on whether that meant internal discussions within the US military or talks with South Korea. The US Forces Korea Commander, General Curtis Scaparotti, also alluded on Thursday that the US and South Korea are weighing China's opposition to the possible deployment of the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense System, or as it's more commonly known, THAAD. Seoul has reiterated on several occasions that the US has made no request for deployment and no official talks have been held on the matter. North Korea says it will continue to beef up its military strength centered on its nuclear capability as long as the US and South Korea maintain a hostile policy towards the regime. Attending an international security conference in Moscow on Thursday, the North's defense minister, Hyun Chul, said the, quote, aggressive nature of the United States had not changed. He added that the ongoing joint Washington-Seoul military exercises pose a threat to North Korea's security, claiming that they are aimed at overthrowing the regime. The defense minister also said that Pyongyang's nuclear deterrence was a powerful force for the maintenance of stability in the region. A group of South Korean activists resumed sending anti-Pyongyang leaflets and DVDs of the movie The Interview across the inter-Korean border on Thursday. This comes after another attempt by the same group last week was thwarted by police. Pyongyang has condemned the activists, vowing to take revenge against their actions. South Korea's unification ministry says it cannot stop them, as the leaflet launches are a matter of freedom of speech. This movie, The Interview, is a satirical US comedy depicting the fictional assassination of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. South Korea, the United States and Japan are holding their first ever trilateral vice ministers meeting in Washington. The three countries are expected to hold a press conference after the talks and announce measures to strengthen their cooperation on comprehensive issues, including regional security on the Korean peninsula, in the Asia-Pacific region and even beyond that. The talks are also likely to include in-depth discussions on North Korea's nuclear program and its dire human rights record. After the meeting, South Korea's Vice Foreign Minister Jo Tae-yong plans to meet one-on-one with his Japanese counterpart Akitaka Seiki, where he's expected to convey Seoul's firm stance regarding historical and territorial issues with Tokyo. The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank are making lots of positive noises about the new China-led Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. Speaking at a press conference ahead of the World Bank IMF spring meeting in Washington, World Bank President Jim Yong Kim was gushing in his praise, saying the need for infrastructure in the developing parts of Asia is enormous, and he pledged to work very closely with the AIIB. Christine Lagarde, Managing Director of the IMF, said an institution that will focus on infrastructure on a regional basis is actually an attractive proposition. And she stated the IMF was also excited to work closely with the China-led bank. Korea is one of 57 founding members of the AIIB, which is expected to be established by the end of this year. Now, the sequel to the highly successful Avengers movie hits local theatres next week. Many people are wondering whether it will live up to the hype, not just in terms of entertainment value, but also in the benefits it could bring to Korea. That's because a number of action scenes were shot in and around Seoul, and this has prompted government officials to speculate it could boost tourism to the country. Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Captain America dodges cars near the Hangang River, while Scarlett Johansson speeds through the busy streets of Seoul. These are scenes from Avengers Age of Ultron, the sequel to the hit superhero film, opening in Korea next Thursday. The movie is expected to be a great success here, as the first Avengers movie attracted 7 million local viewers back in 2012.
I really like the fact that some of the scenes are from Korea. I can't wait to see the next Avengers movie.
The movie is not only expected to lift ticket sales at box offices, the government believes it will also boost the number of foreign tourists. The Korean Film Council estimates 620,000 tourists will visit the country because of the movie, generating a projected $80.4 million for the local economy.
Korea doesn't have as many tourist attractions as China, but I hope the movie will bring a lot of foreign tourists to Korea.
However, one local expert warns that the hype surrounding the benefits to Korea may be too much. The scenes don't exactly show Korea in its best light, what with buildings crashing down and the Avengers team taking a blow.
This scene where Scarlett Johansson speeds through Seoul is not real, and the scene was put together later. That's why I'm beginning to question whether the movie will boost tourism to locations in the film.
Only time will tell if the Avengers sequel will bring tourists to the country. But one thing's for sure, local fans can't seem to wait. The Korean Film Council says 220,000 tickets have already been sold, an uncommonly high number just a week before the Korea premiere. Kim Jeon, Arirang News.
Well, that's all we have for now. I'm Mark Broome. It's Friday, so have a wonderful weekend, and thanks as always for watching, and we do hope to see you at the same time on Monday. Goodbye.